Hey, family. Today's topic is a little sensitive. I always say when we don't control what we can control, we are being controlled. And stress isn't always something that we can directly control, but we do have control over how we manage our understanding of stress and then how we manage it when it is occurring. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to jump right in on managing stress. Part one, I'm going to break this down into two parts. So I kind of want to teach on the front end, identifying it and knowing your triggers. And on the back end, the second part will be how to tackle those or resolve them or get in front of those and practical tools to help you manage. We'll jump in right after the intro. You are excellence. Your mind is of excellence. Your visions are of excellence. Your unique superpower is nothing short of excellence. You amplify a voice of excellence. Your contribution to this world will be of excellence. You will achieve your highest goals and desires with excellence. Excellence in everything, every time. Happy Tuesday. I'm really glad that you have decided to join me for another episode of Excellence in Everything Live. If this is your first time joining, my name is Lenny, the host, and I have the privilege of traveling the country and inspiring those to live a life of excellence. I define excellence as your highest quality of effort. People know me as a national edutainer. I take education-related topics and I present them in an educational way. I've worked with college campuses, government agencies, large nonprofits, school community groups, you name it. And this year, October, will be 10 years of my work. I'm really passionate about giving people practical ways to do everything, everyday things. And primarily on Excellence in Everything Live, we target Black moms and helping them connect better with their children. Well, if you were with us for the last few weeks, we were on a series called Top Tier Talk. And today we're going to transition back into some soft skills, but they can somewhat be applied as a hard skill as well, with the intent of continuing to provide practical tools. And so if you saw today's topic, managing stress, part one, I want to start by saying I am not a licensed medical professional. I have no clinical studies, no clinical background. But what I have experienced over the past 10 years working very closely and in some ways very distant from every generation that's alive today. And I can say this very sure that the commonality in all of them is that stress does show up whether we like to acknowledge it or not. And so I'm excited about today's topic because this is an area that I am continuing to practice. I won't say that I have it down proficiently, but I feel good about where I've come. And I'm hoping to get you to exceed where I am and I'll bring you up further than where you may be. If you are watching live, let me know that you're here. Hey, Miss Dana, happy Tuesday. So good to see you and thank you for joining tonight. Miss Dana is a very, very good client of mine. And Miss Dana actually shouted you out last week for the last day of Women's History Month. Just to thank you for being a part of my journey and being so supportive over the years. I appreciate you. But if you're watching live, you can type in, hey, I am here. And if you have comments, suggestions, and if you want to share, because I got some stuff I want to share too, you're welcome to do that. I will make sure I acknowledge you. And if you know anybody who could benefit from what we're going to talk about today, even before you know it, just assume it's going to be good. Just on faith, go ahead and share the information with her so that with them so that they can benefit. I want to start by saying stress is absolutely normal. It is a normal reaction to everyday pressures. And what is unhealthy is when it is beginning to impact or upset your day-to-day functions. So the American Psychological Association defines stress as this. It's a normal reaction to every day. This is similar to what I said. It upsets your day-to-day functions, and it involves challenges affecting every system of your body, including how you feel and how you behave. How you feel and how you behave. And I don't know about you, but that's pretty powerful. If something has an impact on how you feel and how you behave and it's showing up consistently, that is definitely an area of concern. Hey, Case. Case said he is here. Thank you for joining us tonight. Again, if you have questions, jump in and say, hey, if you want to share. We got stories. I wish I could bring y'all up sometimes. I would love that. I wish I could hear your voice so you could talk back. But I appreciate you being here. Again, this is a topic that I had to learn to work through. I'm excited to touch on it a little bit, and I also teach it to some of my clients in partnership. So, stress can manifest physically, it can show up in your body, it can manifest emotionally, it can show up in your mood, and it can also manifest in your behaviors. So, if you are having trouble with decision making, maybe you're indecisive, maybe you're moody, maybe you have aches in your pain, we're going to talk about those. But I always feel like if something can affect you in those dimensions, that's a lot of power that we have given something that, in some degree, if we can't control it, how do we manage it? And before you are able to manage something, you have to be able to recognize where it exists, recognize the source where it's coming from. So I always ask, and I like to start with an activity to identify your sources of stress. So one of the activities that I would do in a group setting, whether it be workshop based, is I would have participants do an inventory. On the left side, I would have them write down everything that brings them joy. When you think about this, it lights you up inside, makes you smile, you're excited to do it, you're happy to do it. And then I have them write a list of things that you absolutely dread. I do not like it. I don't like how it makes me feel. I don't like that it's an obligation of mine. I don't like that it's on my plate. Write down all of those things. That includes people, situations, environments, those roles and responsibilities on each area. I have them write them down. On the right side of the paper, I have them attach the feeling associated to why they don't like it. Why don't you like this thing? Why does it like pain you so much to do, to be present for? Because sometimes we have associated a disliking for something and we're not even recognizing how it does affect us. So I have to start from a very, like as if this exercise were with an 8-year-old. That's my training mindset when I'm bought in to teach. Like if I have to strip you down to a very basic understanding, I have to start with the feelings that you can easily recognize and then teach you to recognize the ones that you actually have to dig and reflect on. So what typically comes out of that, I have participants describe like what is it about that you don't like? What's the feeling that you associate with being that? And then I ask them, how does that show up in your body or emotionally or mentally? And then they can begin to identify what their triggers are. So I'll give you an example. I remember one participant said, I really don't like going to my in-laws because the behaviors or the conversations that were had, they were very, what is it called? Finger pointing. She felt like they were a little bit aggressive. I said, well, what's the feeling that you have when you have to go? She said, a little bit of anxiousness. How does that show up in your body? And they had to think about it. Like, and usually people say, it doesn't show up in my body. Okay, well, the next time you have to go, I want you to think about how, like, pay attention to how your body is responding to you being under stress or feeling like you are in a place that you're not comfortable in. So you literally have to do that kind of self-reflection. Some of us know, and if you know already and you're watching, like, yeah, I know what triggers me. I don't need to do all those assessments. I know, I got it really clear. But that's one way to start with identifying it. Again, we can't manage something or attempt to manage it if we can't identify the source. Last week, I mentioned to you, sometimes when we're in conflict, we give people our frustrations instead of the feelings. So when a person is under stress and you are unable to identify the source of the stress, perhaps the people you are most closely connected to or that you love the most, they get the source of your stress, they get your frustrations, but not the feelings or the reasoning why you're feeling that way. So it comes off as projection. It comes off as you being, I don't know, it depend. Some people are withdrawn. They lack interest. They don't want to engage. They're not as communicative. They're not as joyful. They're not themselves. But if it's hard for you to identify what stresses you, it's really difficult to be able to communicate when you're feeling stressed to the people that you love. This is why I'm showing up this way. And so you can see that by not knowing the source, it has a domino effect on those that you're closely connected to, including those that you work with. So being able to do that is important. I want to keep in mind that there are two types of stress. There is acute stress, and that's something, it's going to happen every day. Like when I have a speaking engagement, I still get nervous, by the way. It goes away maybe in about 90 seconds at this point. But again, I'm on 10 years. But the anticipation of it, especially if it's a lot of people, I have stress. Packing, traveling to the airport, making sure I catch my flight. That those are examples of acute stress. It's a short a period of time that you are experiencing a form of pressure, and when that period passes, that feeling of stress goes away. So that's acute stress. The other type of stress, which is the one that we associate with death, when people say, too much stress will kill you, that's what we would call chronic stress. And that is, it is not happening in short increments of time. You are like, it is not passing. You are definitely like experiencing it consistently or more repeatedly. Maybe it's happening intermittently. So you have these really big highs, lows, and highs. So it kind of looks like this. Those are examples of, or something like a chronic stress. And our bodies were not designed to hold chronic stress. They were designed to deal with acute stress, but they were not designed to deal with chronic stress. And so I wanted to take today to walk you through like how to identify it and how it shows up in the body, because I want you to make an executive decision if it's something that, or how you're going to respond now that you have this information. One of the things I like to do, if you want to eliminate or change your behavior, I always say throw some D's on it. So you're either going to do it, you're going to commit to doing a thing, you're going to commit to making a change, you're going to deter it, you're going to like, you know what, now I know that the change needs to happen, but not quite sure I want it to happen right now, but it's on the back burner, or it's in my mind. You can delegate it. You can say, you know what, I'm going to be intentional about adding other people or assigning them some of the extra things that I have to get it off my plate. Or you can delete it. You can say, you know what, this no longer serves me. I do want to try something else because what I'm currently trying isn't working. So I'm hoping that after we run through today, you can make the executive decision which D you're going to throw on that list after you've done that inventory exercise. So on the right-hand side, when you did the things that you didn't like, didn't make you feel good, assigning a D to those things. Am I going to continue to do it? Am I going to defer doing that? Like, I know I need to take care of it, but not in this season. I'll revisit it in quarter 3. Are you going to delete it or delegate it? So I want you to think about that when you think about your acute and chronic stress. Last thing I'll say before I talk about how stress shows up in the body is that when we have an indecision about something, that's the decision that we're making. When we fail to make a decision, that's indecision, and that is a decision. So when we are left in the gray, left in limbo, which is like, I don't know, I'll figure it out, you are choosing to make an indecision. And knowing what I'm about to tell you, I'm hoping that might change your mind. Before I do that, I want to talk about 3 ways that we can work together while you're here. Obviously, the biggest one, people know you can bring me in to speak. Managing stress is a topic that I do offer. It comes with an actual kit. We call it a wellness kit, and we teach you how to apply practical things to manage your stress levels that you use with engaging in your sensory. Love to teach that. The second thing is you can bring me in to train. And training looks a little different from speaking because training has a learning outcome. And like we agree that these are the things I want these designated people to walk away with knowing. It's skill-based versus speaking is information-based. And the last way we can partner to create a program curriculum, or if you want to do a partnership in forging one, that's one way. So those are 3 ways we can work together. If you were ever wondering, if you come weekly and you say, this content is good, I would like to find a way how I can work with you or get your information out, those are the 3 ways. Let's talk about how stress shows up in the body. I went and pulled this image because I'm always looking for a visual to drive home the point I want to make. Some of this you already know, but we know that stress shows up in muscle tension. I actually have a stressor. I have a lot of projects that I'm managing right now, and I have this pressure right here in my neck. This is how I know I'm stressed. I've learned to listen to my body, but there's this little aching pain right here. And it doesn't go away until whatever I'm managing ceases. It doesn't go away. I pray about it, it doesn't. And some people say, okay, well, maybe you can get a massage. You can do all those things. Yes, I will go get a massage. It will, for a very brief moment, subside, and then it'll come back. So that's one way. Sometimes stress, depending on, how you manage it, everybody's body is different. But it may show up on this side of the body, which is your brain, when in the form of headaches. You may have like tension here or migraine, something like that. And I don't know about you, but when I have a migraine, I have very low functionality. And so if you find yourself repeatedly experiencing that, that's one way your body is trying to communicate to you. There's something that you are doing that's causing, well, your body is being triggered by some type of environment, responsibility, person, project. Your body is literally trying to tell you, hey, okay, we're going in survival mode. And so we're responsible for responding to that. Some of us may have digestive issues. So you may have issues with things that affect your stomach area, maybe pain, maybe bloating. Bloating is a big one for me. Sometimes diarrhea and constipation, I think, are a little bit more on the severe side, but they can happen. Other ways stress shows up in the body is sleep issues. If you struggle with falling asleep, like if you're thinking about things on your mind, you have a hard time resting. Like you have a sense of restlessness. You lie down to sleep, your eyes are closed, but your mind won't stop. Over time, if that is a normal pattern for you over time, then that means you have lack of sleep. And I don't know if you know this, but continued sleep deprivation leads to depression. So again, when we are starting to recognize the changes in our body or the changes in our natural body patterns, those are great ways to get in front of that. And so one of the things that I do when I know I'm preparing for a very stressful month, maybe I have a lot of projects, a lot of high priority tasks, I'm intentional about my stop time. So my stop working time, my stop communicating time. When I say communicating, I mean meetings. Like I got to be more intentional about giving myself more time to calm the noise down in my head. So that means less processing time. Well, I rephrase that. I would need more processing time. So I cut off the time of working because I know my mind will continue to go. So an example of that might be if I have a week, let's say we're doing a major conference or you're planning a major event. The week of the event, don't plan any meetings. Block off your calendar if you can. Limit your communication or unnecessary conflict. Just try your best to minimize that if you can. Again, this is a good time to throw some D's on it. Who can you delegate if you have children to help you do those weekly tasks? This is you getting ahead of, this is how you manage stress. Like I was trying to avoid going there, but the way that we manage it is to prepare when it's coming or like get ahead of it when we know we can anticipate a high volume of responsibility. That's the only way. And so you can delegate, you can ask for help. But what I would do is I would stop my communication or my volume time around 6 p.m. because my mind's still going to go. I'm still going to take notes. I'm probably still going to be ideas. I'm probably still going to make calls. And then I'm intentional about when I like prepare for bed. The other thing I do is I'm intentional about the kind of lights that I have. So in my bathroom, the lights are so bright, I don't cut them on, especially when I'm like in this mode. I light a candle instead. These are very small, simple things. The lighting in my bedroom it's soft light instead of a white light or a daytime light, and it has a lamp shade. So there are two forms of lights in the room. We have a recessed lighting. Those are bright, right? Because you want a well-lit room when you're getting dressed. But then you have a lamp where the lighting is a little dim. So the mood is different. Those are very practical things that you can do to prepare for managing stress. Elijah said, mine shows up in my lower back. Yep, that is definitely an area. When I was doing some research, definitely was one of the areas for sure. Elijah said, people ask me if I sleep. I say my eyes may be resting, but my heart never rests. But I have perfected the 15-minute nap during the day when I feel sleep deprived. That is a great alternative. If you're struggling getting rest, looking for alternatives to make up on sleep. And I will say this, there is no such thing, scientists say there's no such thing as making up sleep. Like if you lost the sleep, you just lost it. The only way to get rest is to rest. And when they say rest, it varies, but an average between 6 and 8 hours a day, just depending on your body and what it needs. We're going to get to this in a second. Shanice said, hey, Lanita, keep doing these talks. They're very needed. Awesome. Thank you for joining and thank you for sharing that. I'll try my best. And sometimes I run out of topics, so I welcome any suggestions that you guys have. I will take them. So let's jump back in on the other ways that it shows up in your body. Again, this is just so you have awareness, because some people may say, I don't experience stress. Okay, we're going to see. We talked about this briefly, but fatigue, sometimes if you have a consistent feeling of tired, like you feel like you never have enough rest, even though you get 8 hours of sleep. And I actually felt like this when I took a sabbatical earlier this year. I felt restless and I wasn't even busy. It was a very slow period, actually. But that was my cue that it was really time to like have some time aside from what I was doing, like to shut down, to not think. And that's important. I want to talk about this really quickly before I talk about the last two ways that it does show up in the body. A few years ago, I was working for an organization that I would define as pretty toxic. My work hours were very strenuous. The expectations were very strenuous. It was a very no-era work environment. And when I would drive to the parking lot, my mood, it doesn't matter what happened that day. Somebody could have deposited $10,000 in my bank account. My grandma could have called me with the best doctor's news. No matter what happened prior to me getting into that parking lot, the moment that my body, like the moment that I physically could see where I was going, my mood would change. My energy would change. The people that I worked with were also difficult to work with. It was a very tough time. And I made a promise to myself that I would not allow the temporary environment that I was in dictate like the core of my character. So what I did was, when I got into the parking lot, I would pray. I would pray for God's peace, provision, allow me to not be distracted, allow me to maintain an even temperament. I pray for every fruit of the spirit, peace, joy, love, long suffering. Like I just went to war in my closet. That's just a fancy way of saying I got really intentional about what we would call spiritual warfare, fighting for something that you really want. I really wanted peace. I really wanted to enjoy an unenjoyable workplace. And so I would pray. And I asked for a special project that was related to the realm of work that I like to do. So I went all the way to our top leader and I asked, could we adopt a school? Can we find a charter school in the area and adopt them? And whatever their core needs are, I want to be responsible for doing the programming to meet those needs by leveraging like the incomes of those in the room. The average person in the room was making at least $90,000. This was in my early 20s. So I'm like, most of them were single, and I'm jumping to conclusions, right? Counting people money. But what I'm thinking about was, that's my sweet spot. I love serving. I love helping. I love people. So if I got to come to this place for this temporary time, I really don't like y'all. How can I find a way to make my time here feel like a place I want to be? That was a game changer. I should have pulled pictures. We adopted a school in D.C., we did quarterly events. It was hard though. It was a lot of work. This was in addition to my regular assignments. But I don't know about you, when I wanted peace so bad, like the extra work, that didn't even compare to the feeling of like discontentment that I wanted to eliminate from walking in the building. And I noticed that by doing that project, it had a domino effect on everybody, not just me, because people were saying like, I like this. We got to do more of this. It was creating a sense of camaraderie, and we were taking ownership of our work in the community. So I would go to the school, take pictures, and then send an email blast. This is what your money gave. This is what families are saying. And it was creating somewhat of like a softer heart, and it was creating relationships with people who usually don't talk. So I say that to say, sometimes fighting and showing up for eliminating our stressors, you got to get creative. If the main source of your stress is work, what could you do? What would change the atmosphere so that you can better manage the thing that may be causing you pain that you want to get rid of? And that's what I wanted to say. That was a long way of me saying that. Elijah said, amen. I would say to this day, I probably learned the most out of that place that I worked. And I'm not even going to mention the name because Okay, two more things I wanted to share as it relates to the body. You may have also changes in appetite if you notice like you're not eating as frequently. You don't even have a desire to eat. You're not even thinking about food. It's like you don't have there is no appetite when you normally would. That would be a sign of stress as well. So just looking at the changes in how you're consuming food. I will also say overeating too. I don't know who told me this. It was a naturopathic doctor, but she said that you can tell the kind of stress you're under by the things that you crave. So if something's salty, sweet, if something is crunchy, like those cravings are associated with the type of stress that your body is responding to. So you crave those specific things. I don't know if that you can relate to that, but I know that when I am when my stress is a little emotional, I really want something sweet. I want chocolate. I want cake. When my stress is it's not emotional, it's more like project focused, like deadline oriented, I definitely want something. I want french fries, I want crunchy, I want salt. So I found that to be true. It's just something that you may want to observe when you start having those cravings. What are they for, and what are you associating those with? Again, when we can get ahead of the source, then we can kind of get ahead of the behavior changes too. All of this is about managing what we can. And I said earlier, when we don't control what we can control, we're being controlled. So if stress is controlling your eating habits and you're gaining weight, then you're being controlled by that. If stress is controlling your eating habits, you're not eating, you're underweight, you're being controlled by that. If stress is controlling your ability to sleep, and you love sleep, you got a nice bed, then you are allowing stress to control you. So think of it that way. When I'm not controlling what I can control, I'm being controlled. When you shift the positioning and the perspective of you having ownership, it gives a little sense of urgency, like, okay, I gotta make some changes. And that's what I'm hoping that today's conversation is doing. Elijah Wan said, I love how your mood improved when you started acting instead of reacting to your environment. Oh, that's good. I didn't even realize that that's what I was doing. But yes, I was trying to get ahead of the feeling. So how can you, if you're watching today, get ahead of the feeling? Last few ways that stress shows up in your body. You may notice an increased heart rate. Is your heart racing? Like literally. Like think about when people say, I was so mad, steam was coming through my ears. What they're referring to is your body is heating up. So there's no steam, but they're so hot because their blood is pumping fast. That's a lot of strain on your heart. And when you have an increased blood pressure, like you are making yourself susceptible to other things like a heart attack, like high blood pressure. Those are long-term effects when you have strain on something that you can control. So sometimes it may show up sometimes it may show up that way too. If you notice, if you have a sense of sweating, maybe you find yourself when you're feeling anxiousness or you're feeling under stress, under your armpits are sweaty or your palms are sweaty, your back maybe starts to sweat, but there's an excessive level of perspiration that's occurring that typically doesn't, noticing that too. Not when you're in the gym, but when you are maybe under deadline, when you're in communication with a particular person, when you're doing a particular assignment or in a relationship with a particular person, just looking out for those things so that you can continue to monitor your body. And I did want to say this also, when another one of the long-term effects of having chronic stress, meaning continuous, is that it begins to weaken your immune system. So again, if you're not sleeping, your body isn't getting a chance to rest, which means it's not healing. These are just compounded behaviors. So when your immune system weakens, it decreases your body's ability to fight off viruses. So you need rest. So it's interesting how all of these things kind of compound. Again, going back to the beginning when I said when we can identify the source, these are things that are contributing to your stress. Before we can manage something, we have to identify it. So go back to that inventory list that we talked about. And if you're just joining, you might have missed that. But I asked everyone to create an inventory of things that you absolutely love. They bring you joy. You can do it with your eyes closed. You love it. It makes you feel good. You get the good hormones released. And then make a list of things that are the opposite. They do not make you feel good. You dread doing them. You don't want to do them. You despise them. You don't like that you're even responsible for them. You make a list of those. On that list, you want to attach what is the feeling associated with those things. And then I ask that when those things occur, watch how your body responds to them. And then you decide what D you're going to throw on it. You're going to do it, continue to do it. You're going to defer it, like it's front of mind, but it's not priority. Maybe in the next season, you'll say, okay, this is something I want to pick back up. You're going to delegate it. This is something that has to be done, so I can't eliminate it off my plate, but I can ask for help. Or you're going to delete it. So you're going to decide, you know what, I'm going to make an executive decision. This no longer serves me. It's actually not serving me at all, and I'm going to eliminate it. So you get to make that executive decision. So that's it for today. I want to pause there because I got to leave something for part 2 when we come back next week, which is on the practical ways that you can manage your stress. And so I want you to think about something that we talked about today. When you start your day tomorrow, think about when you're in environments, again, it could be acute stress, something that occurs every day, it's project-based, it can pass. Even if it's acute or chronic, I want you to take notice of how your body is responding, because that'll tell you like how much capacity or strain you're really putting on your body that you may have been avoiding. So this is you learning how your body is responding to stress. So that's the first way that we can manage something, is to take knowledge of it and be prepared. Be prepared to do something about it. So that's your homework. Y'all know y'all can't come here and not get no homework. Your homework, watch how your body is responding to acute and the chronic stress that you may encounter. If you just joined us for today, you have to go back and catch the replay, the whole thing. But I promise you it's going to be good. But if you're still watching live, I want you to share something that you learned today. Share a takeaway that you have from today's time that you have. Last thing I want to share, I touched on briefly some of the things that I do in preparation. If I know I'm going to have a stressful time, I talked a little bit about my bedtime routine. The other thing I didn't say is that planning your day out before it starts, if you know you're running into or you're heading into a I won't say high stress, maybe you have a high level of responsibility in a particular week, it really helps to think through before the day starts some of the things that have to be done. We have this thing, and it's a real thing. It's called decision fatigue. It's when you get overwhelmed because you have so many things that require you to make a decision quickly. So all of that pressure and strain that we put on our minds at the top of the day, some of it we can eliminate by the night before, writing out a list of things. Okay, in the morning, I know I got to do this. I'll make sure this is done. You start making the decisions the night before. It could be what you're wearing, what your children are wearing, what they're eating for breakfast, how somebody's getting where, what time y'all are leaving. Those are very small things. But if you really take notice about how much energy in your mind is being consumed when you have to think quickly about those small things, over time it creates fatigue. So if you find yourself exhausted before you even start your work day, that's probably why. So what can you eliminate thinking about having to make the decision of the day before the decision is made? Another way to manage stress. Definitely something I wanted to make sure that you took away. Ms. Dana said, I learned ways to identify my stress triggers. Yes, do the inventory exercise that I suggest. It's a great journaling method too. Okay, my friends, I'm glad that you stopped by. Again, I will continue to read your comments after we end today's live stream, but I like to keep the content brief so you could keep coming back. I love you. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. I'll see you next Tuesday, 8:30 Eastern Time, p.m., and have a good week. You are excellence. Your mind is of excellence. Your visions are of excellence. Your unique superpower is nothing short of excellence. You amplify a voice of excellence. Your contribution to this world will be of excellence. You will achieve your highest goals and desires with excellence. Excellence in everything, every time.